In the quiet suburbs of Seoul, where neat rows of apartments stood like perfectly aligned dominoes, June Park lived a life typical of many university students. At 21, he was an aerospace engineering student with dreams bigger than his small shared apartment. His passion wasn't girls or parties, but the sleek quadcopter drone that dominated his study desk. The drone wasn't just any ordinary device. It was a custom-built marvel of technology, assembled piece by piece with precision and care. June had spent months saving money, working part-time at a local computer repair shop to fund his aerial research project. Every weekend, he would launch the drone, carefully documenting its flight patterns and collecting data for his upcoming university thesis. His neighbor, Mr. Kim, was a different story entirely. A retired military officer in his late 50s, he despised anything that flew over his meticulously maintained garden. Mr. Kim would stand at his window, watching June's drone with narrowed eyes, his fingers constantly twitching as if ready to grab a broom and swat the device out of the sky. One Saturday morning, everything changed. June was preparing his drone for a routine neighborhood survey, calibrating its sensors and checking battery levels. The morning sun cast long shadows across the residential street, and a gentle breeze rustled the nearby maple trees. He launched the drone with practiced ease, guiding it smoothly over the rooftops. Mr. Kim watched from his window, his face turning progressively redder. The drone hovered momentarily above his garden, its camera pointing downward. Something caught its sensor, an unusual heat signature that didn't match the typical thermal patterns of a residential area. Most people would have ignored it. But June was not most people. As the drone completed its programmed route, Mr. Kim stormed out of his house. His steps were angry, purposeful. "You," he shouted, waving a piece of paper. "I'm suing you for invasion of privacy." June was surprised but not scared. He knew his rights as a researcher and student. The drone had been flying at a legal altitude, collecting data for his academic project. But something about Mr. Kim's anger seemed different today. It wasn't just about the drone flying over his precious garden. When the drone landed, June immediately transferred its data to his computer. The heat signature was strange, almost like something was deliberately trying to blend into the background. It didn't look natural, and it certainly didn't look human. Little did June know that his simple research project was about to uncover something extraordinary. The lawsuit from Mr. Kim would become the least of his concerns. As night fell, June reviewed the drone's data. Strange electromagnetic readings mixed with thermal anomalies painted a picture that was both fascinating and slightly terrifying. The heat signature wasn't from a misplaced garden object or a hidden machine. It was something else entirely. Mr. Kim continued to rage, making phone calls and preparing legal documents. He was determined to stop the young student from flying his drone. But his anger masked something deeper, a sense of unease that he couldn't explain. June's university professor, Dr. Park, would later tell him that sometimes the most significant discoveries happen by accident. A drone survey, an angry neighbor, and a strange heat signature. These were the ingredients of what would become an incredible journey. The suburban street looked peaceful. Perfectly trimmed hedges, identical apartment blocks, and the soft hum of evening traffic created a scene of absolute normality. But beneath this calm exterior, something was waiting to be discovered. June didn't know it yet, but his drone had just captured the first evidence of something that would change everything. A simple research project was about to become humanity's most important investigation. As he saved the drone's data and prepared for bed, a notification blinked on his computer screen. The thermal image from his last flight seemed to pulse, almost like it was alive, waiting to be understood. The neighborhood watched and waited. The university computer lab buzzed with the quiet intensity of late-night research. June sat alone, his eyes fixed on multiple screens displaying complex data visualizations from his drone's recent flight. What had started as a routine research project was quickly becoming something far more intriguing. At first, the thermal readings looked like random noise. pixelated heat signatures that seemed to dance and shift in ways that didn't make sense. June adjusted his filters, cleaned the data, and looked again. Something was definitely wrong. The heat signature didn't behave like anything he'd seen before. It moved subtly, almost imperceptibly, between the houses on his neighborhood map. Where normal thermal readings would show consistent patterns, hot rooftops, warm windows, cool gardens, this was different. It was like something was deliberately trying to hide, but not quite succeeding. Dr. Park, his research advisor, would typically be skeptical, but when June showed him the data, the professor's usual calm demeanor changed. His hands trembled slightly as he examined the screens, pushing his glasses up and leaning closer. "This isn't normal," Dr. Park muttered, more to himself than to June. The thermal anomalies had specific characteristics. They shifted in patterns that suggested intelligence. Not human intelligence, but something else. Something that was trying very hard to blend into the suburban landscape but didn't quite understand how. June began cross-referencing the data. Weather reports showed no unusual atmospheric conditions. Satellite imagery from the same time revealed nothing out of the ordinary. But his drone sensors told a different story. Each time he zoomed into the thermal map, new details emerged. Microscopic temperature variations that seemed to move with purpose. They weren't random. They were calculated. His computer beeped. Another data analysis complete. The heat signatures weren't just static. They were communicating, like a complex language encoded in temperature and electromagnetic waves. Mr. Kim, the angry neighbor who had threatened to sue June, suddenly seemed less important. Something much bigger was happening right in the middle of their quiet suburban neighborhood. June called his best friend Min, another engineering student. "Come see this," he said, his voice tight with excitement. "Something's not right." Min arrived within an hour. Together, they analyzed the data, comparing notes, running multiple simulations. The more they looked, the stranger things became. The heat signatures matched no known technology. They weren't from any terrestrial source, not industrial, not military, not even experimental research. They were something else entirely. "It's like," Min said slowly, "something is watching, studying us." Outside, the neighborhood looked peaceful. Streetlights flickered. A dog barked in the distance. Nothing seemed out of place, but the data told a different story. June realized he was looking at something extraordinary, not just an unusual thermal reading, but potential evidence of something far beyond normal scientific understanding. As dawn broke, casting soft light through the computer lab windows, June made a decision. He would continue investigating, no matter what it took. The thermal anomalies were more than just a research project now. They were a mystery waiting to be solved. Little did he know how dangerous that investigation would become, and how much would depend on what he discovered in these seemingly innocent suburban streets. The computer screens continued to pulse with data. The hidden thermal signatures continued their subtle dance, waiting to be understood. Watching. Always watching. The university workshop hummed with nervous energy. June and Min had transformed a small research space into something between a high-tech laboratory and a makeshift defense center. Consumer drones lined the workbenches, each modified with custom sensors and experimental communication systems. Dr. Park watched silently, his initial skepticism replaced by a growing sense of urgency. The thermal anomalies June had discovered were no longer just an interesting data point. They represented something potentially dangerous. "We're turning everyday technology into a detection network," June explained, soldering tiny circuits into a modified quadcopter. The drone looked ordinary from the outside. Black, sleek, about the size of a textbook. But its internal systems were anything but standard. Min calibrated the communication jamming equipment. They had discovered that the mysterious heat signatures responded to specific electromagnetic frequencies. Each drone would now act like a sensor node, creating a network that could track and potentially disrupt whatever was hiding in their neighborhood. Military intelligence had gotten wind of their research, An official from a classified government department visited the university, asking quiet questions and reviewing their data. He didn't say much, but his presence suggested they were onto something significant. The drones were programmed to do more than just fly. They could now detect minute temperature variations, track unusual electromagnetic signatures, and communicate with each other in a complex mesh network. What had started as June's research project was becoming a potential first line of defense. Outside, the suburban landscape looked peaceful. Perfectly trimmed gardens, identical apartment blocks. Nothing suggested anything unusual was happening. But beneath this calm surface, a technological rebellion was brewing. June worked with a focus that surprised even himself. Each drone modification was carefully designed. Sensor arrays that could detect heat signatures invisible to normal cameras. Communication systems that could jam and redirect unusual signals. Tracking algorithms that could predict movement patterns of the strange thermal anomalies. "We're creating a civilian defense network," Min said, only half joking. Who would have thought consumer drones could become humanity's early warning system? Their first test came unexpectedly. During a routine flight over the neighborhood, one of their modified drones captured something extraordinary. A heat signature that didn't just move. It seemed to react to being observed. It shifted, changed, tried to hide. But this time, they were prepared. The drone didn't just record the anomaly. It actively tracked it, sending real-time data back to their computer systems. Multiple drones converged on the location, creating a web of sensors that made hiding impossible. Dr. Park looked worried. "We don't know what we're dealing with," he warned. "These signatures, they're not natural. They're not human, but they're intelligent." Government officials began showing more interest. Quiet meetings were held. Data was exchanged. June and Min found themselves at the center of something much larger than their original research project. The modified drones became their weapon. Each one was now a sophisticated sensor platform, capable of detecting and potentially disrupting whatever was secretly observing their neighborhood. Consumer technology transformed into a defensive system. As night fell, the drones continued their silent patrol, hovering between buildings, scanning, tracking, watching. The thermal anomalies tried to hide, but they were finding it increasingly difficult. June looked at the computer screens, watching the complex dance of data and thermal signatures. Something was happening. Something big, and they were going to be ready. The technological rebellion had begun, and it started with a simple drone, a curious student, and a neighborhood that was about to become the most important location on Earth. The night was unusually quiet. Streetlights flickered with an odd rhythm, and the usual sounds of suburban life seemed muted. June and Min watched their computer screens, surrounded by a network of modified drones waiting to launch. They knew something was coming. The thermal signatures had been changing, becoming more aggressive. No longer just observing, they were now preparing for something else. The first sign of trouble came at 2:17 a.m. A drone near Mr. Kim's garden suddenly went offline. Then another. The computer screens erupted with warning signals. Something was jamming their communication systems. June's hands moved quickly. He activated the backup drone network, a series of devices programmed to work independently if the main communication system failed. Each drone was now a standalone unit, capable of tracking and responding to the unusual thermal signatures. Outside, the neighborhood looked different. Shadows seemed to move in ways they shouldn't. Temperature readings fluctuated wildly. Something was definitely not right. The government team arrived silently. Black vehicles with no markings pulled up, and men in dark suits moved with practiced efficiency. They didn't ask permission. They simply took position, setting up additional monitoring equipment. Min discovered something strange in the data. The thermal signatures weren't just hiding anymore. They were preparing to do something. Communication patterns suggested a coordinated effort, like a military operation about to begin. "They're going to make a move," Dr. Park said, his voice calm but tight with tension. "We need to be ready." The intervention happened quickly. One moment, the neighborhood looked normal. The next, strange energy signatures began to appear. The air itself seemed to ripple, like heat rising from hot pavement. June's modified drones responded immediately. They weren't just recording anymore. They were actively fighting back. Sophisticated jamming systems interfered with the unknown entity's communication. Sensor arrays created a defensive network that made traditional invasion difficult. Military personnel moved with precision. Specialized equipment was deployed, creating interference patterns that disrupted the thermal signatures. But these weren't ordinary invaders. They adapted quickly, finding new ways to move and communicate. The battle happened in microseconds. Electronic signals fought across invisible wavelengths. Drones moved like digital soldiers, blocking and redirecting unusual energy signatures. What had started as a neighborhood research project was now humanity's first line of defense. Mr. Kim, the neighbor who had once threatened to sue June, watched from his window. His military background suddenly made sense. He recognized the signs of a sophisticated technological conflict, even if he didn't understand all the details. June realized they were doing something unprecedented. Consumer drones, devices meant for photography and recreation, were now advanced defensive platforms. Each modification they had made was proving crucial in this unexpected confrontation. The thermal signatures tried to break through, but human adaptability proved more powerful than advanced alien technology. Every time the unknown entities found a way around one defense, June and his team created another. By dawn, the neighborhood looked normal again, but nothing was the same. The thermal signatures had been pushed back, forced to retreat, not defeated, but certainly challenged. Dr. Park looked at June with a mixture of pride and concern. "We've done something important," he said, "but this is just the beginning." The drones continued their silent patrol. The computer screens showed complex data patterns, evidence of a conflict that most of the world would never know happened. A suburban neighborhood had become the unexpected battleground for humanity's first technological defense. June understood now why he had been so obsessed with his drone research. Some discoveries are made by accident. Some defensive systems are created through curiosity. And sometimes, the most important technologies come from the most unexpected places. The sun rose over the quiet neighborhood. Everything looked normal, but nothing would ever be the same again. In the months following the unexpected neighborhood incident, June's life transformed completely. What had begun as a simple drone research project had become a global phenomenon. Governments around the world wanted to understand how a university student and his team had developed a technological defense system using consumer drones. The United Nations called a special conference. Scientists, military experts, and technology researchers gathered to study June's breakthrough. His modified drone network wasn't just a local solution, it was a potential planetary defense system. Universities worldwide began developing similar programs. Consumer drone manufacturers started incorporating the advanced sensor technologies June had developed. Ordinary people could now purchase drones that could detect unusual thermal and electromagnetic signatures. Mr. Kim, the neighbor who once threatened legal action, became an unexpected ally. His military background helped validate the research. He explained how June's technology represented a new form of civilian defense, something more adaptive and responsive than traditional military systems. Dr. Park helped establish a new research center dedicated to developing advanced drone technologies. June and Min were given leadership roles, transforming from students to global technology experts almost overnight. The thermal signatures that had initially appeared in their neighborhood were now understood as potential alien reconnaissance attempts. Multiple global locations reported similar unusual energy readings. June's drone network became a critical early warning system. International technology companies competed to develop more advanced versions of the detection system. Drones became more than just flying cameras. They were now sophisticated sensor platforms capable of tracking unusual environmental changes. June discovered that the most important technology often comes from unexpected places. A simple research project, born from curiosity and careful engineering, had become humanity's first line of defense against unknown technological threats. Government agencies created a new department focused on civilian technological defense. Drone operators were now considered potential planetary guardians, trained to detect and respond to unusual environmental signatures. The lawsuit Mr. Kim had initially planned became a footnote in a much larger story. Instead of being punished, Jun was celebrated. International science awards recognized his innovative approach to technological defense. Military experts realized that future conflicts would be fought using technology like Jun's: adaptive, distributed networks that could respond quickly to emerging threats. Traditional military hardware was becoming less important compared to intelligent sensor systems. Educational institutions began offering new courses in drone technology and planetary defense. Students around the world were inspired by Jun's story, a reminder that innovation could come from anywhere. The suburban neighborhood where everything started became a tourist attraction. People would visit, hoping to see where humanity's first technological defense against potential alien reconnaissance had been developed. Jun never forgot the moment everything changed. A simple drone flight, an unusual thermal signature, the curiosity to investigate something that didn't make sense. These small moments had transformed into a global technological revolution. International cooperation reached new levels. Countries shared drone detection technologies, creating a global network of sensors and communication systems. What had started in a small Korean neighborhood was now a worldwide initiative. Mr. Kim would often tell visitors how he had initially been angry about a drone flying over his garden. Now he was proud to have been part of something much larger. The lawsuit was forgotten, replaced by a story of unexpected discovery. Dr. Park continued mentoring young researchers, emphasizing the importance of curiosity and careful investigation. Jun's discovery proved that significant technological breakthroughs could happen anywhere, to anyone willing to look closely. As years passed, the drone detection network became a standard part of global security infrastructure. Millions of devices worked together, creating a technological shield that could detect and respond to unusual environmental changes. Jun understood that technology was more than just machines. It was about human curiosity, adaptability, and the willingness to investigate the unknown. A simple drone had become humanity's unexpected planetary guardian. The world had changed, and it all started with a curious student, a modified drone, and the courage to look beyond what seemed normal.